Hi, welcome to PDX Garden Home. Well, it's been a rainy, wet week, but I don't let that stop me. There are moments of sun, and here's what I've been up to this week.
On today's vid, I'm battling weeds in the blackberry beds. I'll take you on a tour of my favorite part of gardening, raising seedlings. I'm planting my two favorite veggies, bok choy and Chinese cabbage. And I'm harvesting spring onions.
And as we often do, we're going to talk about what we planted this week and what we harvested this week. I know there's several of you that are following along with what I'm doing here, so I appreciate that, and we'll have that coming up later in the vid. And if you'd like to follow along with what we're doing here on a weekly basis, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get gardening. So I just took my time to just kind of sit and weed this blackberry bed. These are thornless blackberries. They're delicious. I love them, but the bed always gets ravaged with weeds, and so I'm getting them all out. And I'm wondering with these blackberry beds, can I put some kind of ground cover on any of these blackberries? I mean, I'm trying to keep the soil clear of weeds, but I think just leaving it with open soil is a recipe for disaster. So yeah, what do you all think? What kind of ground cover could I put in there? Well, my favorite thing in the garden is propagating and playing with all these starts, like starting plants. That's what I love the most about gardening. So you can imagine this time of year, I am super excited. This is my favorite time in the year of the garden. You know, I like this. I really actually like this more than the plants out in the beds. I mean, I enjoy having the plants out in the beds as well, but I kind of like, you know, if I get other people helping me, I like to sit back and do the propagating and plant starting and let other people actually mess with the garden beds themselves. So come along and let me show you all the things that I have kind of in my home nursery. We've got the greenhouse, we've got some outdoor staging areas, and then we've got what's in the basement. So we've got some Casper kale, some African daisies, some chard there that for whatever reason isn't doing quite as well. Some morning glories. These are some flax. There is some kohlrabi in the back there. This is some Chinese broccoli here. And then we've got some more things started here. Oh, this is larkspur still starting here. More kohlrabi, some broccolis. These are dahlias that I grew from seed. You can see they're struggling a little bit because they've been kind of sitting in damp, cold pots. Over here, more brassicas. You can tell I grow a lot of brassicas. This is broccoli. This is the Weltham variety. These are more beets. This is a variety called Subetto. This is a flower I've talked about before that I really like growing. Grows like a pansy. It's called Saplogosis, and it's but it's got more of a metallic sheen. These are some lettuce starts that I just started out in the basement, or not, I didn't start them in the basement, I started them in the greenhouse. It's a combination of mesclun here and then some romaine back here. And yeah, I just threw a bunch of seeds in each cell, so they need to be thinned out before they can really grow on. This is some chard here, and then we've got some other brassica back here. This is cabbage, Copenhagen cabbage back there. Some more saplogosias. This is salvia, violet queen salvia here. Again, more brassicas. This is more Weltham broccoli here. This is beets, golden beets here, and some of a red beet variety back here that I don't have labeled. This is the cylindrica beets here. These are more kohlrabis here. You can tell these are getting nice and big. This is actually looks like it's ready to go out. Some Swiss chard, some morning glories, and then some more Subetto beets here. This is Casper kale here, some different kinds of kale, some Dino kale that's in here. And then back here are some different kinds of poppies. My germination of poppies and cell trays has been spotty, but you can tell these are starting to do okay over here. These are some just bunching onions here. I don't know why they germinated in the front but not in the back. Must have something to do with the way the watering was going. There's some straw flowers in here. This is Celiosia here. My my Celosia trays has had mixed results. These are actually looking some of the best that I've had. I've had others that have just really died from a lot of fungal issues and just being too damp. This is Penstemon, which I've struggled to grow consistently. Again, the germination on those has not been super. Behind that is more Saplogosia. You can tell those are kind of a star of the germination show here. There's more straw flowers here. Again, spotty germination, but there is some stuff in there. Here's some old peas in here that never got transferred out, so I probably will just junk those at some point here, but I've got some baby little tarragon growing in there. We've got, this is a blue Dino kale that's growing in here. This tray's got a couple of things. It's got some spinach up front and then some arugula in the back here. And if I go down to the bottom, we've got ageratum, I think it's a type of flower. Another kind of brassica there. I just don't want to bend over. We got some ornamental grass, and again, another kind of brassica over here. Coming back over here, my asters were struggling for a little while, but I got them out here, let them dry a little bit. They were sitting in too much water. They needed to dry out, and now they seem to be doing much better. These are painted daisies. I've historically had trouble growing daisies. I think what I might do is pot these up into bigger pots and let them get bigger before I put them out so I can keep track of them better. These are plants that I actually got from farmer's market because I did not successfully grow shishito pepper. So I got 3 shishito peppers here, and then I also have a stevia. I did grow a stevia from seed, but only one, so I wanted another one for backup here. This is some more white stem bok choy. Talked about that a lot. I kind of planting that every few weeks or so. Got another kind of broccoli down there, some more straw flower, some more brassica broccoli and kale stuff going on there. We got some pansies, and then we got some romaine lettuce off to the far right there. I'll only back up a little bit here though, because I've got 2 rows going on here. I've got this row going all the way back. So this is kind of the latest seed tray sitting here to germinate. This is another round of lettuce that's sitting here to germinate. And then some more, guess it, Saplogosia. You can see here that I killed off some of it as I was doing it, but I've got some Saplogosia here, some there, and then I got some beets in there kind of using up the tray space. This what is our one and only tray of Lisianthus, and I was heartened to hear that I'm not the only one that has trouble germinating Lisianthus. So you can see the germination was spotty here, but they're growing on. I think they're so precious here that I think we might pot them up before we put them out as well. This, you can see my Dahlias here are doing way worse than the other ones. Same, but ultimately the same problem. You can tell it's just I got the soil too damp, it's too cold for them, and I just didn't have enough space to just keep them in the basement nursery and keep them dry kind of thing. Same pansies, doing okay. I could do better with these if I pot them up. This is some lettuce, some different varieties of lettuce that I have here, different kinds of, these are, I was trying for the first time the Salanova brand lettuce, so these are different varieties of the Salanova brand lettuce, some like butter lettuce and red oak leaf and green oak leaf here. These are delphiniums, and you can see I've gotten mixed results here. I need to get these either potted up or put out into the garden. But the ones that I've grown from seed like this over a year ago are doing really good out in the garden beds right now. So yeah, I mean, again, the germination isn't that robust, and my raising them up in here isn't super, but I have had a history of being able to get some plants going. And then here, this is a plant that is basically tobacco. It's Nicotinia. I'm growing it for the flower, and the fragrance is quite lovely. And then over here, some more of my sickly dahlias. I do have dahlias from bulbs from last year, and also separate bulbs that we've ordered that we'll be putting in the ground. So these dahlias from flowers are not our only show at this. More stuff at the bottom here. Actually, what you're looking at there, I showed that in a prior video. That is the hot biscuits amaranth. We got some romaine lettuce there that I need to kind of pot up or separate out, maybe get into the field. We got some edible amaranth. We got some anise hyssop there with some marigolds at the front. Tray of spinach here. Over here I've got some cilantros, and then some more artichoke starts that we've raised from seed. We've planted out a bunch of artichoke starts last week already. And then this is the one and only Verbena that I was able to grow from seed. Several years ago, I grew a bunch of Verbena from seed, planted it out. It was great. It re-sowed itself. The next year it was great. And then we weren't paying too much attention when we were weeding, and we weeded it all out. And so we didn't have it last year as much. I think maybe we had a couple plants. And so I was trying to grow it from seed again, but I really didn't have good germination success. I only had one plant do well. And so I potted it up to really make a go of it. So this one is doing good. Circling back over here to kind of the middle row that I got going on here, this is a new flower for me that I'm growing. I put it in these pots from the cell trays to try to baby it a little bit because it was more unique and precious. And this is an African daisy called Hulu Prince. And then I've got some cosmos here. These cosmos I didn't treat very well, so you can see they're not doing as well. I got a kind of a failure tray here, but I'm just kind of leaving it here. I took it out of the basement nursery, and I'm leaving it here in hopes that some of it might survive. Over here I've got the Crassopedia, which is the sunball kind of decorative plant, and then here what I really kind of killed is this gypsfolia. I've got some petunias here, ageratum going on here, some more ornamental grass here, some cosmos that didn't do well here, some that are doing okay here, marigolds that are doing okay, and you can tell part of some of what's going on here is I've run out of space to treat some of these plants optimally, and so they're just kind of in survival mode, and I'm just trying to keep them alive until the weather does better and they're kind of in their best environments. Well, that's what's going on in the greenhouse. I won't walk you through every plant outside, but let me give you a view of kind of some of the other nursery areas we've got going on. So this is kind of the outside staging area. So this is all stuff that technically could be put in the ground. It's just kind of sitting here. It's stuff that is more cold hardy, so it's out of the greenhouse. It can handle the rain. It can handle the cold at night. It could even handle a frost if it came to that, although I don't expect any frost at this point. But our temps at night are still not above 50. And so, yeah, I've got a combination of some bok choys and cabbages and columbines and kales and different spinach and a lot of the repeats of the same thing you saw inside. One of the things I have out here that is not a repeat, that is kind of unique, that's sitting out here is what I call the fairy flower, but it's called Linaria. And so this is ready. It should go out into the field somewhere. And then back here behind the greenhouse, I have a secondary staging area, and you can see, when we get full going, when we have all the tomato plants in out here a month from now, we'll be using all of this. We'll be using the tops of these buckets. We'll be using this bench, as well as back there, that first staging area. We'll be using it all out here to kind of hold plants until we can get them in the ground. And so here, what we have here, though, we're barely using this back area. So what I still have out back here is a lot of foxgloves, a few onions there, but mostly a bunch of foxgloves. Well, I guess, what you can see from that review is you can kind of tell my style of gardening is I garden in high quantity to make up for the fact that the quality of my gardening sometimes isn't that great. So you can see that I've got a bunch of successes. I also had a lot of failures that you could see in my video there. And so, yeah, I just, I'm putting down so many plants, though, that I kind of, I don't cry too hard over the failures because I have so much going on that I have plenty of success to play with. And that's overall my style. I think, others may focus more on the micro, focus more on getting kind of doing everything they grow, doing it really well and high quality, and maybe they get better results for themselves that way. But I don't have faith in my capabilities in that regard. So I just grow a high volume and assume that a large percentage of that will carry through. The Asian veggies, bok choy and Chinese cabbage, are two of my favorite crops. Sometimes bok choy is referred to as a cabbage. I get that, but in my head, it's definitely not cabbage. Bok choy is its own thing, and I love the juicy, crispy end of it. I plant a couple of different kinds of bok choy. I plant the larger white stem bok choy, which in my garden can grow 12 to 8 inches tall. Then I also plant what's called Shanghai Bok Choy, which is usually the shorter version that just has pure green stems with green leaves. The stem is almost a chartreuse color, and the size of the Shanghai Bok Choy is more compact. The larger white stem bok choy
I put in the beds about 6 to 8 inches apart for spacing, and the smaller Shanghai Bok Choy, I can get away with spacing that is more like 4 to 6 inches. Similar to my other plantings, I drill the hole, put out some all-purpose fertilizer around the holes, and then I just place the plugs in the holes. I expect the bok choy will take about 60 days to get some sort of maturity to it. The white stem bok choy grows pretty large and bushy if it doesn't bolt. And so it could be a 90-day deal if it doesn't bolt and I can get a really nice large plant. The Shanghai Bok Choy is more like a 60-day deal. So what about Chinese cabbage? Well, that's the plant that is sometimes called Napa cabbage. It's used for kimchi, and it's also a veggie that I really love to grow. The challenge I have with growing it, though, is it tends to draw in slugs because of its really tight habitat. The slugs love to get in there in between the ribs of the leaves because it's tight and snug for them, but it's not as tight as a European cabbage. It's harder for the slugs to get in and live in between the leaves. The Napa cabbage or the Chinese cabbage creates a nice, snug, moist area for the slugs to live in, and it's just loose enough that they can just hang out in there. That problem can be a bigger problem if your Chinese cabbage are planted really close together, so I recommend planting these maybe 8 inches to a foot apart. They can grow quite wide also, depending on the variety, so even with a foot of spacing, they may still end up touching each other. When it comes to planting, my technique's the same as the bok choy and other things. I drill holes, spread all-purpose fertilizer around it, and then pop in the plugs. The Chinese cabbage should be a 90 to 120 day deal to get it done before it bolts.
Here's some additional things I started this week from seed: summer squash and winter squash. The summer squash includes things like zucchini and patty pan squash. The winter squash includes things like pumpkins. Also planted sunflowers. These were all done in 3-inch pots or red solo cups. In the ground we planted bok choy, Chinese cabbage, another round of spinach, and the flower larkspur. Larkspur could have gone out earlier, it's just we didn't have time to get it out until now.
Well, I have a bunch of these onions in the garden that are forming seed heads, and so for those, they're done growing any bigger once they have a seed head. I actually don't know where these came from or what they are. I don't know if they're bulb onions where I missed them harvesting last fall or last year and they just kind of stayed there, or if they somehow multiplied from the bulb onions I had in here. Or there's yet another possibility, which is that I had a lot of bunching onions, both a red and white types of bunching onions that I planted around and probably forgot where they were. And so maybe these are just like bunching onions that have stayed in the ground for a long time, which is interesting because then, I wonder, is a bunching onion that gets to be like 1.5 inches in diameter still good to eat or not? I'm going to try one just to see kind of what it does to the flavor of it but in any case, I'm going to treat it all as spring onions. So whether it was a bunching onion that was left in there or it's a bulb onion that's not going to bulb because it's now flowering, that all falls into this category that I'm calling spring onions, which is onions that you kind of pick and you eat them like bunching onions. You eat them right away. That you don't try to save them like you would a bulb onion. So that's what's going on here with the onions that I'm finding in the garden beds.
Here's more on what I harvested this week. Mustards, purple sprouting broccoli, Brussels sprout rab, chard, leeks, spring onions, beets, and kale. Note all of those things are things that were planted in the garden before this season. Radishes were harvested this week. That's my first harvest of something that was actually planted this 2022 season.